Hello, friends. I am so excited to be sitting next to my dear friend, Oliver Niño, known as the Spiritual Activator. He is a thought leader and an energy healer. And I feel like when a lot of people hear those things, they're kind of like, what does that actually mean? So I can't wait to dive in and actually find out what it is you do.
It's the hardest question to answer for me when I'm about in town and people are like, so what do you do? I'm like, I was like, how much time do I have?
Yeah.
Because if I don't have a lot of time, I'm like, yeah, we write books, we do a lot of stuff online, right? You know, we do internet, internet marketing, like, we don't really go into the depths of it.
Yeah.
Or we do some, life coaching or energy healing here and there, but depends because it's to me, it's like, it's a 30-minute conversation. It's an hour. People are like, really? How does that work? How does healing work, right? What do you mean healing? We can heal, right? So to me, it's like a deeper conversation. So depending on who's asking and how much time we have, I'm like, yeah, we sell books online.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us. That was so much fun. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's it.
He sells books.
We sell books online.
Okay. So you're an energy healer.
Yep.
But you call yourself the Spiritual Activator. I was curious how you came up with that name.
Actually, Mandy did.
No way.
Yeah. I remember we were in living in Sedona, and it's one of the things to where if you're around it a lot of times, you're not picking up, but you have a significant other that's there and they're seeing the things that you can't see in your blind spot. So she was like, a lot of people that are around you, shortly after they're around you, their spiritual gifts open up. Like they can become more psychic, or they all of a sudden they can start healing, or all of a sudden they have premonitions. And a lot of times it happens while they're there. They start channeling, and it was odd, man. It was like, it's not happening just once. It's becoming more frequent. People that don't even have this gift, they've never heard of it, all of a sudden it just comes up.
Wow.
And she goes like, your energy's doing it when they're around you. You're a spiritual activator. And I'm like, oh, what? I didn't know what it was because I've never heard the term, but she actually coined it.
Wow. I love the backstory of that.
Yeah.
I want to hone in on the word spiritual.
Yeah.
Because I was, recently talking to Mandy, and I feel like people think spiritual means like you're super woo-woo and you're not grounded in the world right now. And there's a woman named Jessa Reed. I told you about her podcast, which I love. And she says that everyone's making it so weird. Like everybody's a spirit, so you're spiritual. And it doesn't necessarily need to mean that you're wearing this long skirt and your name is Moonflower, right? And you're like
lily pad, right?
Yeah, lily pad or whatever it is. And so I wanted to know, how do you tap into the people that think this is super woo-woo and who are maybe scared of the word spiritual when you tell them that you're the spiritual activator?
It's interesting because, like, a lot of the times, like, when people see my stuff online, like, I'm not, like, automatically introducing myself. Typically, I'm talking about situations that people are going through. So it's interesting. I would say about 70 to 80% of people that find us online, they don't know what chakras are. They don't know what energy healing is. They haven't picked up a book on anything spiritual at all. They're actually, by definition, they don't think they're spiritual. I'm their first introduction because the way I talk about it is exactly how you described it. We all have, a energetic body. We all have it. Everyone has it. We're all affected by energy. So to me, when everybody has a spirit, everyone has a soul, it's just the thing that we don't talk about, but we all have it. Therefore, it applies to everybody. So when I'm talking to people, I'm not like, ooh, are you doing your mantras, and do you have the mala beads, and what kind of crystals do you have, and what do you do in the full moon? It's like, hey, have you ever had an experience to where you walk into a crowded place and the next thing you know, you're overwhelmed? Or have you ever had it to where you're staring at the back of someone's head and the next thing you know, they turn around? They're like, how did that happen? Or have you ever had it to where, like, someone's name randomly pops up out of nowhere and then they text and email you that, or you bump into them? Those to me are like more spiritual in nature. That happens to everybody, right? It's so to me, spirituality isn't just, the spiritual movement or a new age movement. To me, it goes beyond that. It's existed since the beginning of time. We've all been exposed to it. Maybe it just wasn't called spirituality. Yeah. But it's been there, right?
So it's been around forever.
No.
I'm obviously spiritual. Why do you think so many people are like ooh, that's not for me, or I think this is weird, or that's woo woo.
I think
Like, what is it that, like, isn't resonating?
I think it could be the way it's being depicted nowadays. Like you said, in order for you to, that's why I thought at the very beginning when someone was like, I didn't want to call myself a healer or spiritual activator because I'm like, first of all, I don't have, I am not the type of person that can meditate. I'm not living in a mountain with zero thoughts, 18 hours a day meditating and, breathing off air and wearing something white and I like the earthly things. I like balance of everything. I don't fit the typical mold of someone spiritual. So I never really resonated with that. Wow. I'm like, back in the day, rock and roll band. You probably haven't heard of this, but, chip black nail polish, eyeliner. I'm like completely into building businesses and enjoying life and nothing about me was like, oh, I want to devote myself to a spiritual life. Right. So for me, I was like, that just doesn't resonate with me. But then I realized, you know what? Everybody has it. We all have it. We're all born with it. So to me, spiritual means you're just in touch with your inner nature, your authenticity. And a lot of people probably are like, ooh, because they think you have to look a certain way. They think you have to eat a certain way. They think you have to think a certain way and live in a certain place, right? Or maybe they have beliefs that it's evil or scary or bad. So therefore it's like fear of the unknown, or they don't want to get ostracized by loved ones that think that that's bad, right? So there's a lot of elements, whether it's cultural, fear of the unknown, or you're just like, she's spiritual or he's spiritual and I just don't resonate and I'm like, therefore I'm not spiritual.
Yeah. And I like that you said there's a lot of elements. Yeah. I think that's where also some people who aren't into it or don't know about it yet get confused because they want something practical. And they're like, well, what does this mean? Do I have to give up my life and go live on a mountain or go on a retreat or an ashram in India in order for me to be happy or feel good in life? And one thing that I love that you do so well is you make all of this stuff super practical for everybody, which is why people resonate with it.
I met people that by definition, if you look at their lives, they're spiritual and they will never know they're spiritual. They don't identify as spiritual.
Wow.
For example, my mom has spiritual gifts. My mom would dream about things and it will come true every single time. And when I'm like, Mom, that you've got a gift, you're psychic. She's like, oh no, I'm not. Yeah. Because the connotation of being a psychic in the Catholic religion is frowned upon.
Right.
So for her, it's it's the labeling. But and I met a lot of people like that are extremely gifted. They're in tune, they're guided, they've got big hearts, they heal. But then when you start slapping a label of spirituality, they're like, ooh, I can't.
They don't like it. They think I have a friend specifically who thinks maybe it's too granola and she was having thoughts. And I'm like, that's you getting signs from the universe. That's you getting messages. One thing that you've said in the past, which I think is really interesting that I want to talk to you about because I think it's a little controversial, is that when it comes to healing, you've said that healing is a phase.
Yeah.
And I think other people would argue, maybe there's therapists out there. I don't know. I don't want to label anyone, but there's a lot of people out there that would be like, it's an ongoing journey and you're always healing yourself and you're never going to figure it out and yada, yada, yada. So what do you have to say about that? And is healing really a phase?
I think it is because I don't think we're born broken. If you think about it, I don't think you were born coming out of your mom's womb thinking I'm not good enough. Men are out there to hurt me. I'm always, the world, all the world has is pain. Right. And this doesn't work out for me. We don't have it, but life happens. So to me, if that's not our most natural state, right, then, we didn't come as that, then to me, everything after that is a phase. You go through, childhood phase, your rebellious phase, your high school phase, you go to your first job, your motherhood, the first phase, you have another kid. You go through phases in life. And I think, to me, when I look at people, I feel like healing has become a lifelong sentence because, one, people, they look around and nobody's been able to figure it out, that they know. And then you have people that glorify thinking healing is a lifelong thing. And to me, if you look for something in life, you're going to find it. It's like when you want a car, all of a sudden, you see it everywhere. And you're like, how did that happen? Now I'm seeing it more than yesterday. It's because your mind's kind of honing in to the fact that I want that car. So if you're looking for healing is lifelong. You're going to find people who are going to have that same story. So for me, I've also met people that like they've healed and they don't have to heal. They have a beautiful life. They just live it. And it's more about expansion and growth and purpose. And to me, I think people get it confused. To me, you can heal, but it doesn't mean there's no more challenges in life. It's just like, who do I want to be? What do I want to create? Do I want to learn a skill? Do I want to expand my purpose? Do I want to see what my potential is? And you're still going to, come across challenges, but it's no longer challenges to survival and safety and feeling abundant and happy and joy. You're not like fighting to feel that every day. You have that as a baseline. Everything else is just a bonus. So to me, when I've seen that happen in other people's lives, I've seen it happen in my life. I've seen it happen with people that have gone through my program to where, they're like, all I know is anxiety or depression or sadness or lack of love and lack of peace. And that's their entire story. When that's not the case, their family members are asking, how are you doing it? What are you taking? What are you doing? And we've actually documented people to go to a workshop and we follow up with them 3 months, 6 months, a year later, and then it just keeps on going. And I think the more people see that healing is a phase, and to me, healing is like whatever's holding you back from, not being able to feel happiness or abundance or joy or peace, or just that feeling like authenticity in yourself, whatever that's holding you back, it's removed. So you can actually, your baseline is no longer roller coasters of you have joy and deep depths of depression. It's like you got joy and your lowest might be like, oh, I'm a little unsure, but it will pass. Yeah. The lows can't be that low. And to me, that's healing, to where you're no longer going through survival and being brought to the depths of disempowerment and getting triggered all the way down there. It's like you stop at neutrality and you're like, oh, I can go back, bounce back. And to me, that's what healing is you're no longer in fight or flight.
Right.
You're no longer in the survival mode.
Right. And let's talk about those things that hold people back, because that's what you do. You remove these things. Yeah. And you believe that there are 3 types of energetic blocks. And please correct me if I say anything wrong, right? We have familial generational blocks.
Yep.
Energetically, meaning that's passed through our DNA, things that generations of our family have dealt with.
Yep.
That is like literally physiologically in us.
Yep.
That's generational blocks. Then we have traumatic blocks, which are things that happen to us along the way as we're growing up in life. So a past event that you still have PTSD from, a bad breakup, a sexual abuse situation, stuff like that. And then the third block is, and these are all in your book, of course, Spiritual Activator, is environmental blocks. Yep. And so this is us being influenced by the energy that is around us, meaning maybe we're taking on energy of people who are draining us. Maybe we're in a job that we're not feeling fulfilled by. The first 2 feels like we can't really control. I would love your thoughts on that. It feels like you can't control the first 2. The third one feels like you can actually today work on something in your environment that's blocking you. And because I carry things so viscerally, I feel like, or most empaths do, I don't know if I'm an empath, how can we care without caring is what I wanted to know. Like, how do we sort of deal with those people's energies around us that are draining us?
It's a good question. And we actually, ever since the book, I've added more. There's also gestational.
Okay, great. I'm glad I said that.
While you're in the womb, right? While you're in the womb, if your mom's going through anything, sometimes we've seen it to where it affects people.
Oh, great.
I know, right?
I walked in not knowing how many I had, and now I'm leaving knowing I have more.
I know. But here's the thing. I think
meaning if your mom had anxiety.
So for example,
that could be a reason why I'm a highly anxious person.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. It's like for Mandy, for example, when she was her mom was pregnant with her in earlier years, her mom lost everything. They went bankrupt, lost everything, and they were homeless for a bit, right? So so now you would think that wouldn't affect Mandy, but when Mandy was pregnant with our first son, a lot of times, when you're going through that same phase or the same, her mom was pregnant, now she's pregnant, and then things come up to heal. Because I think sometimes things come up to heal when you're ready for it, or when something similar to what created it happens. Right. So during Mandy's pregnancy, we were living in Laguna Beach. One day she was like, oh, I want to buy a big mansion, 15,000 square feet. Let's buy it. And the next day she was like, oh, I want to, sell everything and I want to just buy a tiny home, something safe. So in case shit hits the fan, there's somewhere safe.
Interesting.
And we're like,
those are two completely different thoughts to have within 24 hours.
It's like, where did that happen? And my mom's like, maybe it's just pregnancy hormones and all that stuff. And then her mom called her up and they were chatting and her mom out of nowhere was like, yeah, maybe you should buy, you guys are doing well, but maybe you should buy a small tiny home just in case shit hits the fan.
Oh my God.
And then it came up and the thought came because Mandy's mom lost everything when she was pregnant. So now we realized during the period of pregnancy, all that was coming up for Mandy to heal it so that she wouldn't pass it on to her son.
Wow.
Right. So things can definitely happen. And my belief is, it's a little controversial, but it doesn't matter if it's traumatic life. You can't control traumatic life events if it happens to you. Environment to a point, and like right now, there's probably over 1,000 different signals, whether it's cable TV, radio waves, Wi-Fi going through your body right now.
So radiation too.
So we can't. There's something we can't control, but I think the thing is we can control what we do with our energy in the here and now. Because the thing is, let's say you're generationally, let's say you come from a family to where it's hard to find love, right? Like my family members, I look at it, it's like there's certain people that I look like, okay, it's either abundance or addiction or it's hard to find love. But you always see that there's somebody in that generational line that breaks the pattern. Everyone always does. So to me, it can be two things. You can repeat the pattern, or you can break it. So it ends with you and it doesn't get passed on forward. So I'm a big believer in that, and I believe anybody can do it. It's just that you have to have the awareness and then also the intent of, I want to break this pattern. So it doesn't, it doesn't live beyond me. Yeah.
And so you help people remove these blocks. Yeah. Do you feel like you can completely eradicate them, or it has to does a lot of it have to do with the intent of the person and the vessel? And are they actually healing themselves?
Intent is very, very powerful. The way I look at it's a lot of good questions, so I'm gonna go over them. So when I look at intent, I think is one of the most underrated things is intention. Prayer is a form of intention, right? And if you look at stories all over the world of parents or loved ones that are praying for someone who's sick, and then spontaneously they get better. Like, that's just a prayer. That's just an intention. But how does that happen? Did they work on themselves? Do they have all their limiting beliefs? Are they even healed? The answer is probably no.
Right.
But how is their intention, their prayer, so powerful that it can heal? So if you think about that, and that was one of my earlier stories. I don't think I've ever told you this. Like, when my mom was pregnant with me, I was their, firstborn son, and the first child. So it was like, it was a big thing. And when they had tests, the doctors said that there was something wrong with my kidney. And she went to multiple doctors, multiple second opinions, and they said the same thing. Something's wrong with his kidney. And what did she do? She went to the church. She paid, lit the candle up, special intention. She prayed for me to be healed, right? And that's all she did. And she didn't do therapy work. She didn't do mantras or ayahuasca, nothing back then. 1986, none of that existed, or at least it wasn't popular. And I remember after that, they did tests again, and whatever abnormality that they saw that was there was gone.
Wow.
But if you think about that, that's just the power of intention. That's one layer of it, right? And a lot of times people underestimate the power that they have, because to me, when somebody sets an intention, it's not the human mind saying, I need this to happen. When someone's having a prayer or intention, you're surrendering to a higher power, whatever someone believes in, and saying, please take this over for me.
Wow.
And the soul makes their request. Therefore, it happens even if you don't believe it.
Right.
So for me, that to me is one of the things that's important. And I feel like you don't have to fully heal to get the life that you want. I look at healing as layers of the onion, and at each layer, your life can completely change. Like when I met Mandy, I was in the worst possible place for a relationship.
Really?
Yeah. I was going through a divorce, and I didn't love myself. I lost myself in it, but it didn't matter. I went to Sedona and I did some healing work for about a week, and arguably I was like, hey, anything that's in my heart that's holding me back from love, from loving myself, I want to release it. I didn't even say I want to attract the soulmate. I was like, anything in my heart that I'm holding on to, I just want to release it. And I did the work to do that.
And you set the intent.
Set the intent. And she showed up 7 days after. I wasn't even looking for her.
That's crazy.
And after that, there's still a lot more that I had to work on. But I didn't have to fully heal myself or even love myself to find love, because I feel like we're born pure. We're born unconditional love. We already all that. So it's already our nature. So at times when we're peeling back the layers and when we remember that, we already are attracting that if we're in our authenticity. You don't have to be in that state the entire time. You just have to be there for a moment and make that request. And next thing you know, you're attracting things that are of the highest vibration, even if you don't believe it. Because I think inherently deep down, we are high vibrational. It's just that we forget that.
Right.
Right.
And it's the story people often say about like the cork underwater, right? That if you like remove these blocks and stuff, that you actually are just going to float. Like that's your natural state, is thriving.
And I've seen people like literally, one healing session or one weekend, and they remove one block or a layer of a block and their life changes. Yeah. To me, if I look at it, like our life is amazing. I couldn't even dream about our life right now 3 years ago or 5 years ago. Do I think I'm done healing? I think I've healed enough layers to where I'm not in fight or flight. I'm not in scarcity. I'm not in a place where I'm low vibrational. Are there lots of opportunities to work on? Sure. And now it becomes more of like, I want to do more purpose work. Ooh, I'm afraid of doing this fast. I can work on that. But that to me isn't healing. That to me is expansion and growing. And there's still fears that come along expansion and growing, because your mind's going to be like, whoa, it's too fast. Pump the brakes. It's not perfect. You're going to get rejected. So to me, it's not so much, I'm no longer in that fight or flight. I'm more like, as I expand, I'm going to hit resistance of my internal perceptions of what it should be. And I'm just bumping up against that as I expand. But it's expansion. To me, it isn't healing. It's expansion. It's growing.
So there's a difference between healing and expansion and growing.
And growing, absolutely.
Wow. And how would you categorize healing in like one sentence? Is that just really dealing with the low vibrational sort of blocks that we mentioned earlier?
Healing to me is, and it's different for everybody, there's probably one or a handful of things in life that lower your vibration, that affect you more than that hold you back. That's kind of like you're driving forward and the emergency brakes are on. It's not a lot. You might think like, oh, I got 100 issues. Sure, but out of those 100 issues, those 2 are the ones that create all the other ones, and they're the ones that matter. And when you address that, life becomes drastically better, right? In areas that, and you can see it a lot of times. You see people that are rich, and you're like, they're not happy, but they did something right, and then they're rich. Or do you see someone like, they found the love of their life, but they're like, gosh, like, they didn't have to work for it. But, because you don't have to get it perfect, you just have to get it right in one area. Right? And to me, healing is like figuring out what's the source of most of your pain. And it typically boils down to 1 or 2 big things, maybe 3, and that's it. And sometimes for people, it's just one. And when you address that one thing, all of a sudden, everything's different. And you're like, and people actually reach this moment that they think it's too good to be true. They're like, this is not going to last. Well, I mean, because they think it has to be forever. So when they do something that is fast, they're like, oh shoot, they're afraid of losing it. Yeah. Until they don't. Yeah. Right. So to me, I've seen it happen a lot of times to where when someone has a recurring issue and it's chronic, and they try so many things for 10 years, and then the 11th year they try something and it works. So which is it? Did it take them 10 years to heal, or did it take them 10 years to find the thing? The
10-minute thing.
The 10-minute thing that was the reason why they were experiencing it, and when they did that, they healed. And to me, it's not the 10 years, it's the thing.
I love hearing that, because I feel like it can be really overwhelming to feel like you have to heal in every area of your life. Family, I have to heal my worth, like for my job. I have to completely be obsessed with myself in order to attract the partner. And so I love what you said about sort of like tackling those 1 or 2 areas and how it'll affect everything, and also not feeling like you're broken, because I feel like that's antithesis to what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like I've seen it, and it's different for different people. I'll give you an example. For abundance, right? You would think that, okay, abundance means you gotta hustle, you gotta work hard, it's being in the right rooms. Those are all humanistic way of looking at things.
That's how I think. and I'm like, I gotta network, I gotta do this.
And the thing is, I've tried them and they're good and they're fun.
Yeah.
But they're not what moves the needle. So one of my friends, Peter, is one of my business partners for another venture. His claim to fame was about 15 years ago, he grew one of his companies from 0 to 100 million in 18 months.
Wow.
So, but before that, like, another 7 years before that, he was stuck like making a few $100,000 a year in a business. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to become a millionaire so bad, but he couldn't. He read the books, got in the right rooms, worked more, nothing happened. And he says the moment that changed his life when he was doing a grocery store run. He goes with his wife, they were shopping, and they were in the egg section. So he's like looking at eggs, and he was naturally gonna go for the cheaper eggs. But a part of me was like, I wanna go for the organic, higher quality ones. And the moment he tried to reach for it, he felt the cringe, like,
no way.
The price, it's too much, right? And in that moment, he had this clarity of like, why am I reacting this way towards spending? Because the thing is, the universe, God, energy, higher power, whatever you call it, it doesn't know the difference between spending, receiving. All it knows is like money, and you're cringing, right? And in the moment, he's like, okay, let me work on this. Instead of being fearful and anxious and like losing my power over this, I'm like, let me be grateful. Like, okay, doing this for my health, right? And he started to become grateful, and he changed his reaction to spending, okay? And it was weird for him, but several months afterwards, he became a millionaire.
Wow.
That's the only thing he changed, is his reaction to money.
Yeah.
And you see it happen all the time.
But that takes time, right? Or would you say that's also a limiting belief?
It took the moment.
Took the moment.
It took the moment of it coming up.
To then work on it.
And being like, let me just change this in the moment.
Yeah.
That's it. It took the moment, because in that moment, let's say that belief was generational. Your great-grandparents had it, your grandparents, your mom had it, and you could have had it.
Right.
And it's replaying like a pattern. And in the moment, you're like, I'm going to break the pattern. I'm going to do something different. So all the generational stuff doesn't matter.
Right.
What you did is what changes the reality moving forward.
The intent
and the action that you took in the moment.
Right.
And I don't think people see it's that easy. When I see people make life-changing decisions, it's never the build-up. It's the moment. Think about it. I do, or I'm done. Right? Someone says, I do. It's a moment. Changes everything. I'm done with this marriage. A moment changes everything.
Wow.
I'm taking this job. I'm quitting this job. I'm relocating. I'm staying here. I'm opening my heart. I'm closing it. I'm speaking my truth. I'm hiding. All these decisions, they might seem small, but it changes everything. So to me, what changes your reality is a moment of bravery, of like choosing for things to be different and then acting on it.
Courage.
So
the one little key component of what you just said is clarity. And as you know, like, it's almost like divine that I'm in such a space of non-clarity to like be doing this interview. Because there are a lot of people that maybe feel depressed or sad or anxious who just so badly desire to make that decision. They know something needs to change, but they don't know what it is, and they're scared to make the wrong decision. What do you have to say to people energetically? How can we energetically work on ourselves if we don't have the resources to work with an energy healer in order to gain clarity so that you can come to that one life-changing moment?
So to me, a lot of times, this is actually a lot easier for people. They just don't realize they have it within them. Because if I look at it, when there's a lot of things coming at you in a day, like 100, let's imagine right now, if there were 100 radio, like, things that we turn on, all in different stations and all playing at the same time. Which one will you hear?
None of them.
Yeah. And that's what happens, is even though there's one that you really like, you're not going to hear it because there's 99 others. So what ends up happening is I don't think people don't have clarity. I think there's that intuitive ping, that nudge, that clarity, but then you're not going to hear it if there's a lot of noise. It gets drowned out. So to me, I'm a big believer of like, if you don't have clarity, change your environment for a bit. Remove all the things that interfere with you externally. Remove all the noise. Like if you look at your day and the things that throw you off, get you triggered, get you thinking a certain way that you don't like, get the self-talk going, you're like, oh, is it social media? Is it my email? Is it watching something? Is it going somewhere? Is it talking to a friend? All those things that can radically change your mood, remove them. It doesn't have to be forever. It can be a day, a few days, a week, and you're just in silence. And when you're in silence, two things happen. Things will randomly come up that you're like, that's an interesting idea. That to me probably is a sign that you need to follow. Or things that may be a little bit faint and you might be like, oh, that can't be it. Because you're not used to your intuition being strong. So it's going to be a little bit of a whisper and you might doubt it at first. You're like, I don't know, I might be making it up. But those to me are signs. If they come up in a place of solitude or there's no distraction and noise, you can hear yourself. And at the very beginning, it is a trust building exercise because when you follow it, it brings you what you want, right? And then you're like, that worked. And over time, you're going to realize, okay, even if my mind's not buying it, even though I'm not sure historically, it's just worked, so I'm just going to do it. Because I know that my truth, what I'm feeling, is leading me somewhere beautiful. But at the very beginning, it's a very hard trust exercise to follow that because it's typically not validated by your mind. It typically is beyond your comfort zone. It's typically something that scares you. But you can only hear it when there's no noise. Or it's something that you know is true, but you're like, oh gosh, but it's so hard to do it. Who am I going to lose when I do it? What's the uncertainty I'm going to step into when I do it?
The fear.
So a lot of times people, they know what they need to do, but it's just so hard to do it.
It's scary.
It's scary. Yeah. Therefore, they're like,
I don't want to break up with a friend or this person or where am I going to work or how am I going to make friends if I move, all those things. So if you work with an energy healer, like you, does working with someone with gifts like yours expedite this process?
Yeah. So it's funny because like the energy healing thing, it's, for a while I started off as an energy healer. And then my identity shifted and I went to just training. So thousands of healers from all over the world. I actually focus on certifying and training people. And now I'm back to doing healings. Like, it's fun now. And it's changed. Back in the day, it's like one-on-one. Now they're like 5,000 or 6,000 people at the same time. It's insane.
Incredible.
And to where I'm like, wow, I didn't even know I could do this. But I'm doing it. And what I've realized is that to me, people can get an energy healer or people can do it themselves. You don't have to have a healer to... Yeah, it's not like you can't have success without a healer. It definitely speeds it up because to me, when I'm working with somebody, I can feel where the energy blocks are because everything is in your body. Like let's say in your heart, you could have energy there that's trapped from 4 breakups, 2 deaths, the kid that made fun of you when you were younger, abandonment issues and people that are yelling at you, people saying not nice things. And next thing you know, in your heart, you've got 4 things that are just generationally passed down that you don't even know you don't know. 1 could be gestational because your mom went through something. 7 can be traumatic life events in your life. 4 can be just in your environment right now. If you're lending people to energy or they're depending on you or they're draining you, tugs on your heart, it's here in the environment. And then there could be like self-talk, emotions, they're all in here. I don't need to know all of this connected. Because to me, when those blocks are removed, you simply move forward in life. It's kind of like the lights that we have here. Like the electrician probably knows how they're wired and how it works. But to me, I'm like on, off. Right? So you don't really need to know you don't really need to know the intricacies of it. I mean, it's cool if you do, but it doesn't affect the fact that you just have to do this. So to me, the things that are holding people back are the blocks that are in your energetic field that are caused by a lot of different things that are preventing you from what you want. And when you remove it, you move forward.
Wow. Yeah, and I've experienced this firsthand.
Yeah.
And I want to get into the nitty gritty of what physically you're actually doing. Because when you and I met, you came on my podcast.
Yeah.
And then you worked on me. I live in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And over Zoom, we met. And then we shut off the Zoom and I laid down in my bed.
Yep.
And you were working on my body in LA from here in Colorado.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And I want to know, what are you doing when you're here? Like, where are you? Are you moving your hands? What physically is happening?
Right.
Because I was feeling sensation in my body in LA. How does that work exactly?
Got it. So to me, energy is like, if you can think about somebody and they're affecting you and they're not even here, that's how energy works, right? Doesn't matter where you are in the world, we affect each other just through energy. To me, happens faster than the speed of light. It happens at the speed of intention. That's why there's a lot of times to where I've had it in the past to where I'm feeling good, then all of a sudden, oh, why am I anxious? Why am I anxious? This is crazy. Because I normally don't feel anxious, so this is an interesting pattern. Then I get an email from someone who's anxious, right? And they're from another country.
Wow.
So to me, and they're not even spiritual. So to me, it doesn't matter if they're spiritual or not. Energy affects us the same. So if we can affect each other negatively, then we can also do it positively, regardless of location. So for me,
that makes sense.
When I'm working with people, I actually like moving my hands. I'm a more physical person. So I'm like literally, I'm imagining you in front of me and I can feel where your blocks are, and I'm, working as long as I can in each area to remove the block and then replace it with something positive, right? So to me, I'm like, if someone saw me, I'm literally like doing and I'm like working it like I'm doing surgery. Is what it looks like.
Spiritual surgery.
Yeah. For some people, you do it with their minds, their eyes are closed and they're just doing it in their mind. And it works. I just prefer the more, physical movement.
Tactile, yeah.
And others are like, I have students that I've trained, they're in a dark room, they have headphones on, they're listening to something meditative, and they're in their mind, they're doing everything, imagining themselves doing it, but they're not doing the physical, and it still works. So for me, that's kind of like how it looks like. It looks like I'm working on air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what are you seeing when you're working on air? Like, and how do you, and maybe is that just like I don't want to say it's a gift just some people have, because you said anyone can access it. But what do those blocks look like? How do you know when there's a block somewhere in the body?
So people perceive it differently. Some of the people that I train, they see things. So they're very, very visual. They can describe it to you. Some people hear things, some people feel things, they know things. I'm more of I don't see it. As I'm working on some stuff, I definitely feel it. So for me, when I'm like scanning someone's body, if your heart's blocked, all of a sudden I feel like heat, or kind of like batteries, kind of like polarity a little bit, or pressure, or just like, ooh, that's a lot. So for me, it's mostly a sensation. And as I'm working on things, I'm more of a feeler. So if someone's going through anxiety and I'm clearing it, I might have the word anxiety pop up in my mind, but I might feel it as well.
Wow.
And at times, very rarely, I might have memories come to me. That's their memories of what it's attached to.
Wow.
But so typically that's how it works for me. For other people, they're like, literally, some people that I've trained, they're extremely gifted. They were like, yeah, in your heart, I see this moment, I'm releasing it, there's a lot of pain, and I see a moment, when you were about 7, and there's this red diary, and you open it up, and there's this drawing, and someone bawls, because they're like, oh my gosh, I had a red diary when I was 7, and I did that, and they cry because, they're like, how spot on are you?
Yeah.
And some of my healers, they're very, to a T, like, very, very visual. I've just never been I've just been more
type. Yeah,
I've just
you're
been more
somatic.
feeling. Yeah, somatic.
You feel it in your body, and you can remove those in one session, or does it depend on? How severe it is.
The way I look at it is, it depends on what the person's body is ready for. The way I work,
like your body might not be ready for complete healing. Oh, wow.
A lot of people, yeah, because a lot of healing is like, for some are ready, and here's the thing: I work on what's allowed to be released. And even if I don't release the big thing, like I said a while ago, each layer can change your life. So I met with people that they come to a healing, and I've done probably 40 healings on them in the span of like, I don't know, 3 to 4 years. But the first healing session, they were in a toxic relationship and they couldn't get out. They didn't speak their truth and they were rebellious. So they didn't even believe in what I was saying, but they showed up. And I do a healing on them. And that's all I did.
Right.
Within that month, I hear from them.
Right.
Broke up with a toxic relationship.
Right.
New job, feeling better. And they have a lot more to go, but doesn't mean one healing can't radically change your life. It can't.
And that's what happened to me. So
I remember
worked
that.
on me a couple of years ago. So I'm a full testament, like living evidence of that, right? Like so much happened and now I'm back.
Now you're back.
There's like more to heal.
Yeah. And the thing is, every layer can heal. Because with Mandy, when I healed that, I didn't know I'd attract her. Because in my mind, I thought you have to love yourself fully to attract love. You got to be fully healed. You got to, you have to have to fill in the blanks of all the rules my mind had. But those were irrelevant because the moment I cleared the things in my heart, the reason why I was attracting negative people to me, because I had so much blocks in my heart to where I was in that vibration to where I was attracting people that dance with that block.
Right.
So if I had hurt and I was bullied, growing up, so I wanted to hide and there was like fear of being seen. And so to me, I was attracting people who had the same blocks or who would reinforce that block. So I would attract the bullies, or I would attract people that were emotionally closed off, or I would attract people that were afraid of being seen as well. And that was all that was available to me, not because that was what life was. That's just because
That's where you were.
That's where I was. Therefore, like a signal being put out there, anyone that was similar, they were just coming to me.
Wow.
And anyone that wasn't, they were repelled.
Right.
Because they someone that's healthy, they don't like that, so they
you can feel energy.
Yeah, try as you may, they can't get to you because you have that. So when I released that, I wasn't even looking for a soulmate. For me, I was like, I just want to feel love for myself again. I don't want to be in this pain.
Yeah,
that's my goal. No soulmate goals, and I didn't know she would show up.
Wow.
But that's the benefit of it, because the reason why they're not showing up isn't because you need to love yourself more. It's because you've got this thing that's not authentic, that's throwing everything off. So when you remove it, it brings everything back to alignment.
Right. And I loved my chat with Mandy earlier today where she said authenticity is like a higher vibration than love. I feel like that blew my mind because it is really true. It's like,
but think about it. Like we're on Earth. We have time and we have emotions and we have love. That means outside of Earth, time doesn't exist the way we know it. Therefore, in other places, emotions don't exist. So what's universal? I think there's some places where love doesn't exist.
Really?
Yeah.
You think it's just authenticity?
But what exists is like the vibration of authenticity, of you being your authentic nature.
Right.
So it's a more universal. I think love is big for humanity. I think it's the next step for humanity. I think it's a lot of ways when you have that in this human form, everything changes, but I don't think it's the end all be all for everything in the universe.
Wow.
Because I just don't think that like we have water here that we need to survive on Earth. Who goes to say in some other universe water is the thing they need to survive? So what's our currency here? It may be a different
love.
Currency.
It may be different somewhere
Exactly.
else. Wow, that's fascinating. And you think it's authenticity?
I think it's the most common thing because everyone has to be returned back to their most authentic nature. So authenticity is to me, it's like one of the highest rating ones.
That's so cool. I want to go back to when I was here and I was being healed because you talked about how you have some healers that see things.
Yeah.
And when I was so lucky to be here and get healed by some of your healers. And after the session, they told me they saw the craziest things. And one told me that they saw like a phoenix rising. Another person was able to pinpoint an exact year for me and month. And because I never remember anything, I was like, oh, okay. And then I looked it up, and that year and month was when something really traumatic happened to me.
Yeah.
So I had felt that block. How?
Right.
And like, what is happening? Like, how are the people able to see things and tap into timelines like that in time?
Well, I think, again, I come from the belief that everybody comes with gifts.
Yeah.
Everybody can heal. Think about the body. The body is designed to self-heal. Our bodies are designed to self-heal.
Right.
You get a wound, it heals. Right? The only reason why it can't heal as fast is because we have a lot of blocks. But when blocks are removed, our body is designed to self-heal. So our main body, our identity is self-healing. It's just that there's so many blocks in the way that we can't do that efficiently. So to me, our main nature is we're gifted. We come with these things. That's why you have kids that are super gifted, like earlier on, like they can see the unseen. They can feel they can feel things that are behind closed doors. They know things because we come gifted, but at a certain age, we turn it down. We dim our lights because maybe it's traumatic. Maybe our family members are afraid of it and we don't want to scare them. Maybe we don't want to be ostracized and be different from other kids and made fun of, so we dim it a little bit. Maybe we're rebelling. We're like, the world isn't safe. Screw this. I'm going to turn my heart off and I'm going to go, live this other reality where it's dim. But to me, our most natural nature has it, right? And at times when you're healing and you're working on your purpose and you're doing the work, I feel like these gifts that we have come back to us, whether that is premonition and people can see things in the past or the future. I have people that I've trained that they're psychics, so they can hold an object and they can tell you exactly things that are related to that. I even had one gal that, it's funny, 2 stories. One was she helped she had visions of back when trafficking was a thing and people were like, let's figure this out.
Like sex trafficking?
Yeah. Wow. She would tell us coordinates randomly after my workshop, that have these coordinates, right? Or have these street signs. She would say it. She didn't know what it was. And then there would be a bust in the news and it was the exact same thing. Wow. And she's like, how did, and then I have one gal too. And her claim to fame after she went to my workshop was she can find missing pets.
That's sick.
Like literally a pet would be missing and the owner would send her a picture and the name and she could be in that pet's
That's
body.
Incredible.
And she's like, your pet right now is wet. It's shaking. It's in front of a warehouse. There's this street signs or whatever. And they would go there and they would find the pet.
Oh my goodness.
And to me, I'm like, this is crazy. Because I thought it would just be like, because I have people that work with law enforcement and they touch clothes and they know things like that. But what's funny is I have friends that are detectives and they walk into a room and they can taste what somebody OD'd on.
Whoa.
And they would tell the coroner and they're like, yep, how did you know? Like, I don't know. But
and I believe it. We're getting more sensitive, right? As a collective, like sensitive to these things. It's just not everyone knows or wants to buy into it, but it is happening. I mean, the police working with
people numb out. Think about it. Like you have people that drink a lot because they feel too much. To me, they feel too much energy.
Wow.
So people, a lot of times I see it, they escape to work, eat a lot of sugar, sweets, they drink too much because when you do, it kind of dials down the senses to where it's not too intense. So it's more manageable.
Wow.
And people don't know that. They just judge themselves. So why do I keep eating junk and sweets and drinking, not realizing, could it be that your gift, what you're experiencing, is on overdrive and nobody taught you how to manage it at all? So you're doing what can default in the moment, deal with it, but you're shaming yourself.
Wow. I feel like that's me. That's crazy. Because I'm always like, why am I self-sabotaging, eating so much candy? Like I'm so close to the body that I know I can have and be easeful and be clear.
You know what?
Why am I suppressing that?
So sugar...
And it feels like it's numbing emotion, but this feels like deeper.
So sugar, to me, I see a lot of healers and channels, but after someone does a huge channel session, they eat like a half a L does this, right? Half a container of ice cream. They're just eating sweets because
that's me.
Right? Or they drink because what ends up happening is when you eat sweets like that, it actually makes your crown and your third eye smaller. Therefore, less and less energy can flow through it, and you can go like.
That's so fucked though. Why is everything that tastes so good?
Or they eat burgers.
Make our crowds. Burgers are my favorite. Why is everything that tastes so good makes it hard to
It's not
absorb
bad. To me, I don't look at it as bad.
Right.
I just look at it as that's the only tool you have in your toolbox. It's the only thing you have. Some people eat a burger or eat steak or eat French fries or like, a lot of people that come to our retreats, because when we do retreats, like, it's kind of very, very clean eating.
Yeah.
And I already know this because I'm like, I expect it. When I have a heavy healing day and they just like, oh my gosh, that was so much
They
I
want
processed.
candy or sweet.
No, they sneak out and they go to McDonald's.
Yeah.
Like they go to Taco Bell and they eat stuff and they come back and I'm like, guys, I won't tell the chef. I get you.
Yeah.
You guys are grounding. No judgment, but
that's what it is. It's more so a grounding of maybe you're a vessel that's getting a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And you're actually eating the But would you say it is really important to actually kind of not do that to be able to access your gifts?
I mean, to me, it's important for us to expand our resources once we notice what's happening. Because if you're like, gosh, I work with, so detectives are known for this. Like, they're drinking a lot of whiskey. Why is that? A lot of ones that I work with, as they're looking at the crime scenes, they're tapping in. Things are coming to them and it's insane. Like so much stuff are coming and they're like, they drink the whiskey because when that happens, the third eye kind of like is mellowed out. They're it's not too much things coming in. But if you look at the cause and effect,
interesting.
You're not thinking like, oh, they're just drinking because they're alcoholics. You're like, they're drinking because they're trying to mitigate something intense happening energetically that no one ever taught them. There's no conversation. There's no awareness. Yet they're being judged or they're judging themselves based on what society thinks from a health perspective. But to me, I'm like, sure, but it's an energy perspective. And if they had the tools, that wouldn't be their only tool that they use.
Wow. So it's just a matter of needing to know and educate on like how, is there one little tip you can give people watching now on like something they can do at home?
Yeah, I mean,
it's maybe not the whole program or protocol, but like,
I think we're born with it. The beauty of it is that we're born with it. Like if you look at what you revert to when you're stressed, that's how you clear. For Mandy, she's like, she's got to move her body. She's got to dance, work out, move her body. Because when you move your body, you're moving the energy out. She also journals, right? Or she likes to be alone. Because when she's alone, she's not processing things for everybody, especially if you're empathic. You can't process things for yourself because you're processing for every single person.
I think that's how, yeah.
So solitude is important.
Wow.
For me, it's like salt bath. If I'm working out, if I'm laughing and having fun with family, to me, heart open and laughter does it for me because you're in a high vibration. So for some, they're out in nature. They've got to be, under the sun or they're out camping. To me, you look back at the things you love to do as a child or the things that you do. And when you do them, you just feel like you distress or you calm down.
Yeah.
Those to me, again, it gets overlooked because it doesn't sound spiritual.
Right.
It just sounds like, oh, you're just walking. Oh, you're just listening to music. Oh, you're just drawing. You're painting. Or you're just building something. To me, they're like, it's not spiritual, but
it is. You're tapping into your inner being.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's spiritual. It's just never labeled that way, but it's exactly what it does.
Right.
So for me, we all have it. You don't need to have a crystal and do, the sage to clear it. You could.
Yeah.
There are things that I feel like we were born with that we have an affinity to, that when we do it, we just feel good. So you just do a lot of them.
But ideally, would you advise someone to eat healthy and clean in order to be a clear channel?
So, okay, good question. Is it easier for me to heal when I'm eating clean? Yeah, 100%, no doubt about it. Do I have tools like sacred geometry and the things that I work with energy healing to where doesn't matter what I eat, how I feel, I can still do the healing as powerfully, even though I have all these things that are against me? Sure. So to me, I think there are different levels to it. Is it faster and easier when you're clean? Absolutely. Does it take an extra 3 to 5 minutes? It's a little bit slow and a little bit time to gear up when you're not as clean at eating.
Right.
You can feel it for sure, but the result's still there. It's just a matter of ease and time.
But you do believe in certain foods being lower in vibration than other foods.
I believe so the thing with food that I've noticed is it's about the energy of the food. Let's say you're eating an apple and a salad. Because people talk about meat, right? People are like, oh, it's the emotions that the animals felt. what I've noticed is that's true, but I've also noticed that it happens with you're eating a salad with apple and a celery juice that's been made for you, right? If the person that's handling it's depressed, as she's making it, she's dumping that energy there as well.
Wow.
So when you're drinking that, it doesn't matter if it's organic, gluten-free, which we're organic, gluten-free, dairy-free family. It doesn't matter if that's the case. From an energetic transference, you can feel what they're feeling and it's affecting you. So for me, what I do is I typically bless my food and ask for the negative energy to be removed and to be replaced with positivity, regardless of what it is, whether it's water or something else. Is to me, it's the energy in the food.
Right.
And you can tell when someone prepares food that's loving, you're like, oh my gosh,
it feels so nourishing.
Yeah, nourishing. It's made with so much love, and you can feel it. And if they're heavy vibes, you're like,
yeah,
you can feel it. Our 5-year-old, one of our old chefs, she always cooked with heavy energy. He would not eat any of her food.
No way.
Even if it was his favorite, he would not. And our new chef that we have right now, he's like light, loving. He's like, I love all your food. I'll eat all your food.
Wow,
and I'm like,
that's crazy.
Kids are more attuned to energy than you think.
Of course, because they're closer to source.
Absolutely.
You mentioned sacred geometry.
Yeah.
What is that?
You talked about it this morning.
Yes.
The pyramids.
Okay.
So to me, sacred geometry, it's interesting. I mean, you have it outside of us. Like you have the pyramids, right? You have, it's in nature. If you Google like sacred geometry in nature, you'll see it in patterns in flowers, seashells.
So it's basically the patterns of shapes that just exist
outside of us, but inside of us. If you look at our cells, there's like, spherical in nature. You have DNA, it's a spiral. You look at the DNA closer, it's like 2 pyramids back to back. It's an octahedron, right? So they call it the language of God because it's the language of creation. It's outside of us, it's inside of us. So we're made of sacred geometry and it's everywhere around us. So to me, it's when I'm doing any kind of healing, any kind of protection, any kind of, manifestation, any kind of energy work, I use a lot of sacred geometry because we respond really well to it.
Wow. So what does that mean you use it? What does that mean?
So you can visualize it. So for example, if you're sensitive to energy, and I've had people do this, I had one gal, she, for 15 years, was diagnosed with some sort of debilitating anxiety because she couldn't do a grocery store run.
Whoa.
She would go to the grocery store and she would go through half the aisle, feel everyone's energy, feel so overwhelmed, call their friend to take her home.
Wow.
And she was on medications, she was on a cane, she couldn't do it. And then she went to a workshop and I taught her how to put shields on. Right? So shields is like, could be
like a triangle around your body.
You can be like, you can have you're inside a bubble, and you might be like imagining like white, purple, or gold, right? Pick a color for you. White.
I'm doing it right now.
White, purple, or gold.
Okay.
Intuitively.
Okay. I'm in a bubble. Okay.
Try white. Fill the bubble up with white.
Okay.
And just see how it feels.
Okay.
Then when you're done, try purple.
Okay. I don't like the purple as much.
And then try gold.
Yeah, I like the white one the best.
And try a random color that comes to you. Last one.
Okay.
Randomly, that's just like...
Okay.
What was the random one?
Green.
Okay, which one do you like the best?
White.
Okay, so you have white. Now try, instead of a bubble, try a pyramid.
Okay.
Put yourself inside a pyramid and do white as well.
Okay.
What's the difference between the pyramid and the sphere, the bubble?
I think I felt more safer in the bubble.
Last, do a whirlwind, like you're inside a tornado.
Okay.
And it's all white.
Okay.
Still bubble?
Yeah.
So before you go out, before you open an email, before you get on a phone call, before you get into a meeting, you can be in the white bubble, but you can be intense like me and you can have 10 bubbles, like 10 white bubbles inside the big bubble to where you're like, when you have it, you're like, God, higher power, only positive energies can affect me for the highest good. Anything negative stays out.
Wow.
And you'll be surprised. The gal that I taught this to, she went to the workshop. Hers was actually interesting. Hers was a cylinder but it was two cylinders like this, right? That was spinning, and on the edge of it are like blades, and they were spinning so fast, right?
Wow.
Nothing can get in. That was what worked for her.
Wow.
She did that, and within like a few weeks, she was like, Oliver, I did my first grocery store run.
No way.
After 15 years. And then, here's the funny thing.
That's amazing.
We went, a few months later, we saw her for a second workshop. She came in. And this was back when we were doing smaller workshops in Airbnbs, like, close to 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And people were like, is it me or did Heather go to the bathroom without cane? She didn't use her cane.
Wow.
Because the people affecting her was causing her physical pain. And when she was protected, the source of physical pain wasn't there to where she didn't need it, didn't affect her body anymore.
That's insane.
So to me, like, that's sacred geometry to where it's like, call it placebo, call it visualization, but if somebody for 15 years couldn't do a grocery store run and now they can, right, then to me, it is something, right?
Yeah. Wow, this is fascinating.
So try it next time, like, because people sometimes, like, it's an email, it's social media, it's they go out, they look at their phone. There's an activity that when they do it, they get like either get overwhelmed or they get thrown off their balance. Something can affect them.
For me, it's social media the most, but it's hard because I don't like it so much, and I'm like, because I don't like it, that's what I'm manifesting. But at the same time, it's kind of like saying you don't like email, right? Like, well, everyone's on social media, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So how do we interact with this thing that causes us so much low vibration?
So I do it two things. So for me, if it affects you like that, I would be in a lot of bubble in the white before you even open it.
Right.
So you're like limiting what can affect you. And to me, I understand social media, it's a platform, and I try my best. It's not perfect. I try to get it to where 70% of the time I'm in social media to make a difference.
Right.
I'm there to make I'm there to produce,
to give energy,
not to
take energy,
not to take or be a product of what's being shown to me. I'm not gonna get it perfect. Sometimes, you'll scroll and all those different things, but majority of the time I use it for positivity, output, and not really receiving it. And to me, it kind of works.
Yeah. Wow, that's so crazy. Have you ever worked with someone where the intense energy. The intense energy. Have you ever worked with someone that has had really intense energy, and was it me?
And it wasn't. It wasn't me. You don't even have intense energy. Gosh.
Has that ever happened to you?
I have intense energy. I meet a lot of people that.
But like, I guess what I mean is, have you ever worked on someone and you were like, oh, was it like an Avengers movie where you're like, oh my God, like, I don't know if I can.
Oh, plenty. And
I don't know if I can work on this.
Plenty. I've had it to where it's two things. Some have intense energy, but I'm not really bothered with intense energy because for me, people are just potent. They can just be potent. Mm-hmm. For me, what's affected me most is like, if I'm working, let's say I'm working on somebody and I'm working on their heart. And for some reason, I don't know, I'm not that prepared, or like, I didn't eat that clean, or I'm just goofing off and I'm now doing a healing. So I'm like, I didn't have a lot of,
You're being a human.
Yeah, I'm being a human, which when I'm healing, I try not to be human. You want to be above so you're not affected. So let's say I didn't get that perfect and I'm strolling in 80% there and I'm working on their heart, and on their heart is a Pandora's box. It's like generational, ancestral, the mother lode of all like trauma. When I'm working on that, that's what gets me at times. I'm like, oh my gosh, whew, let me take a break in between this healing, and
wow,
because I wasn't expecting that much. I wasn't in a vibration to deal with that much. So that's what gets me at times. Is like, it doesn't happen often, but when it does, I'm like, I'm having to step out 10 minutes in, clearing myself, like recalibrating. It's like I did 100 healings.
Wow.
Because think about it, you never know when I'm doing healings. I never know what I'm releasing.
Right.
I never know what's attached to it. And if that's intense, then gosh, if you're not prepared, you feel it.
And you probably go in preparing yourself with sacred geometry before and stuff.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Has anything, when you've been working on anyone, has anything supernatural or out of the ordinary ever happened?
All the time.
Can you share a story maybe you haven't shared before?
Yeah.
Of something that went down that you were like, no one's gonna believe this.
Yeah. There were times, and I've had this in front of people in a workshop. as I am working with somebody, and I'm working on releasing whatever's trapped in them, and in a house where we have French doors that lead out to the outside garden. No wind, nothing. As I'm doing them, all of them fly open. As I'm saying, we're releasing it now, and they just fly open.
Like a movie.
Like a movie. And there's no wind. And everybody wakes up and they look at it and they're like,
that's crazy.
What is going on? And I had it as well. It was so weird. We've had this multiple ones to where we had this crazy house. And same house in Sedona. It was just like, it was a lot of energy to where every time somebody had a breakthrough, the doorbell would go off. Every time. Somebody,
no one was outside.
Nobody. We're all in here. And then someone was like, oh, wow. I took it from my mom. Ding, ding. Like, it's like you got it.
Yeah.
And it happened
the
30.
universe is actually hilarious.
It's hilarious.
It has such a good sense of humor.
And we've had it a lot of times, and I forgot this one. This one is a funny one, where I was like, you guys, when you turn on your light, and I happen to point somewhere, and the light turns on, I'm like, oh my gosh. Right? And then I was like, and it's like, these things that were like, with weather or electronics, it is crazy. And we've had it as well. I mean, this is one of a little bit more out there, to where like I forget who it was, but one of the gifts that I was activating with somebody was the ability for them to talk with people who passed. So a lot of psychics come to me, and it's very underdeveloped gift. And then when I help them out, it becomes very on demand and clear. And one of them they were in disbelief. So we were like, okay, let's practice this. Okay. Because I know with spirits and energy, they can play with technology and electricity. So we're like, there's a light bulb in front of us. Practice your psychic. You're talking to this person that's passed. That's a relative. Okay. For a yes, blink once, twice. For a no, blink twice. For no answer, just don't do anything. And she would ask yes or no questions, and ding,
and it would blink.
Ding, ding,
Wow.
ding. And we videotaped it. Like, I was like doing this the entire time.
Wow.
So a lot of times I've seen stuff like that, and you will know. I mean, people like I've seen people, they notice they walk through lights and light starts flickering because their energy is like affecting the lights. I mean, there's a lot of over the years, like extremely, like I can't even. I wish I had a video camera, and I can't explain what's going on. And holy crap, did that just happen moments.
That's wild. So, are there any gifts that you wish you had? And what exactly is the entire sort of resume and list of the gifts
There's
you
so
have?
much. There's so much.
Right? Because there's people that can channel, there's mediums. There's people who see images, like you said, remove blocks like you do. So can you tell us what all of yours are that you've accessed currently, right? Because there could be more on the way.
There's a lot. I think there's a lot I don't know. I mean, I think spiritual activator definitely is a gift, right? I mean, healing for sure. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, the general list of gifts, you can have people that are psychic, people that are channels, people that are transmuters. You're one of them. You're around somebody, and you're kind of like, you're the filter for them. So you take their emotions, and if they're heavy, you run it within you, and you neutralize them, and they feel better.
Oh, wow.
And depending on, where you are, you might feel good. If you're in low vibration, you're feeling everything that they felt, that you're working within yourself. So there's transmuters, just people that can affect weather and technology. There's people that tapping into the Akashic records, right? To where they just know stuff. I got clients that come in, and they're like, as a kid, they would have dreams about a fire in a house, and they would see the number, and the next thing they'd see in the newspaper. So they would just see all the calamities, all the natural disasters. They would just don't know what it is.
Right.
So there's a lot of different gifts like that, and then and I guess when it gets more advanced, it just becomes more like stuff that's like out of the movies. Like, they people that are like projectors is one of them. Is they just have a lot of energy, a lot. That means
Protectors or projectors?
Projectors.
Projectors.
They can manifest a lot of things quickly, or they can destroy a lot of things quickly. And when you're in the room with them, if they're really negative, everybody feels it. Someone walks
like
in the room.
Like a human design projector, or just an actual projector?
An actual. I think of them as a giant crystal.
Got it.
So you have people that walk in the room and they light everybody up, projector. You have people that walk in the room and they lower the vibe of the entire room, also a projector. They're projecting what's within them.
Got it.
So you have people, but those people can manifest quickly, extremely quick, because they generate a lot of energy.
Wow.
Right.
So how do we know like which one we are?
A lot of the times you have things. To me, gifts aren't just like typically coming out of the blue unless you're unconscious of it. A lot of it, there's clues in your childhood. So a lot of times when people have their gifts, like either we're sharing what their gifts are or I'm working on it, they're like, oh my gosh, the memories come, and they're like, when I was a kid, this would always happen. So Mandy's a transmuter, right? Like you, and she would tell me stories like earlier on, her teachers would always put her next to kids that were either autistic or behavioral issues, and they would just calm down next to Mandy. She wouldn't have to say anything. They would just calm down, and they would be in their best behavior, and I think it would be amazing. Wow. And her energy did that as a kid. So to me, there's always signs in the past. People that always like have deja vu. Like, I already saw this happening. Like, it's a sign of your gift, right? People that are like, oh gosh, I'm attracting a lot of people that are negative and they just feel better. Then you're a transmuter, right? Or have dreams and visions of something that will happen, and then it happens, and you're psychic. So I think there's little clues, subtle, like little breadcrumbs in the past of our gifts. It's just that, like, if we're not looking for it, we're not going to know.
Yeah. Are you able, so when you remove blocks, are you able to know what people's gifts are, or you're just able to help them access it more?
Both, but typically it's in the moment. When I'm around somebody, I'm like,
it'll come to you.
Yeah, it's like I knew you were a transmuter.
Wow, that's crazy.
I was like, I knew you were a transmuter. Like, the moment you came, I was like, I just knew it.
Wow.
Right? To where it's like, okay, it just comes. Because to me, I think what happens is like, and scientists have been able to kind of prove this. They have what's called the bioenergetic field. It's what they call the auric field. So science calls it bioenergetic field. So you have one, I have one. So one of the ways that energy can be exchanged is my field interacts with your field. I can read your field. If I have the gift, I can read it. And for sometimes people, if you think about me, then, your intention sends like an energetic cord from you to me, then I'm also connected to you in the moment. So it's like people you think about, or people that are thinking about you, even if they're not here, if they're thinking about you or thinking about them, there's already an energetic exchange of information. That means thoughts, emotions, like, and to me, it was, when I didn't know this happened, it was crazy. Because I remember there was one time, you're gonna laugh at this. I was in college, and I was one of the people that I was dating back then. I didn't know that night. I was in my own dormitory, but I was like, oh my gosh, what's this? I had this like sick feeling to my stomach, to my pit, of like debilitating my heart. I was like, what is going on? Am I going crazy? I just felt sick to my stomach. Something good wasn't happening. I couldn't tell what it was. I've never had it before, but now I was just in the full fetal. Yeah. And a few days later, found out she was cheating on me.
Of when that was happening.
Yeah.
God, that's insane.
But I could feel it, because when you're with friends, people that you have a connection with, you're connected. Therefore, there's thoughts, there's emotions, there's energies being transferred without you knowing it or having any context. So you just think, why am I having this? Am I crazy? But you're not realizing I'm connected to 3 other people.
So if you're in a relationship and you break up with someone, you know how people like break up with people, they think they're their soulmate.
Yeah.
And you think of that person. It's kind of like the Japanese red string theory. Do you believe that you're connected forever? And if you're thinking about someone maybe years later, do they know that you're thinking about them?
I think if you think about them, they can feel it for sure. I don't think you're connected forever, because I feel like your connection is on a vibrational field. So when you shift vibrations, that connection isn't the same, right? So they can only follow you to certain vibrations, where there's vibrations to where that connection is severed, right? Whether you intentionally sever it, or you're in a high enough vibration to where it doesn't even exist, right? To where if you look at the people that, let's say, broke your heart in high school, or kids that made fun of you in grade school, there was a time where you were affected by it, but now you're like,
So this is so interesting because there are people from my past that have come back and I'm like, oh, I feel nothing.
Yeah.
I feel absolutely nothing. So clearly I'm in a different vibration or timeline or frequency than them.
Yep.
If you years later still feel a certain way about someone, you know how there's stories of like people who are like, I had this girlfriend and then 17 years later we ran into each other in an airport and it felt like the same day. Like my question is, one, does energy die? And two, does that mean that they evolve to remain on the same frequency?
I believe that there's some people that they meet earlier on in life, okay, and they're just not there yet. There's things they have to go through for them to be a vibrational match, and they might find it later down the road. And when they both are, then, you know, whatever happens. They can follow that path.
Right.
So I've definitely seen that. I don't think energy truly dies. I think at times we may think about it. We may fluctuate from vibration to where when you're in a higher vibration, you're forgetting it. But when you're reminiscing and you're going down to a little bit of a familiar lower vibration, then all of a sudden you're missing them and you go high and it's not there. So I think we fluctuate. And when we hit these nostalgic, like, you know, reminiscing, like, you know, you're thinking of the old times, and you're tuning into that vibration where that's so strong. Therefore it feels strong, and it's not made up. It is real. Because in that vibration, that thing never left. It is still there.
Wow.
So kind of like right now, if we're tuning into a station and we're listening to jazz, just because we're listening to jazz doesn't mean there's no pop or hip hop.
Right.
It's just that we can't hear it because we're not tuned in on it. So when we're listening to jazz, that's the only thing that exists.
Right.
Even though there's other things, that's the only thing that you're like, this is real to me right now.
Right.
So I look at things vibrationally. It's what you're tuned in on.
Got it. Do you feel like there's only a certain amount, like, is there a cap for how high of a vibration we can feel in this 3D dimension?
I think it depends on
like
where.
There's only so high we can go.
Until you grow. Because I have people that, like, there's only so much they can feel until they expand and then they can feel more. So I think it's almost like.
And is that always through pain and suffering?
No, it doesn't have to be. But I think the pain and suffering, to me, so the way I look at it is you can learn the lesson through pain and suffering. But if I look at pain and suffering, to me, that's also a belief system. And you hear it, no pain, no gain.
Yeah.
You gotta suffer, like, you know, I mean, all those different things, which to me is a belief process. And then we shifted the way we thought of things to where, what if we can skip unnecessary suffering? Not say all, but unnecessary ones. Is there a way we can do that to where we can learn the lesson before learning the lesson? And you do that. You do it all the time. You look at friends that make mistakes and you're like, not making that mistake, and
I'm
you
not
don't
doing that. Yeah.
And you don't, right?
Yeah.
And you could be like, I will make that mistake, I will learn that lesson, I will go through their experience so I can feel it. But you choose to, like, no, I'm just not going to. So to me, I feel like we can skip it.
Right.
Some things that, you know, that aren't unnecessary.
Wow. Crazy. You were mentioning nostalgia and going back to that vibration when we think of people from our past, but I'd love to go to your past now, if that's all right with you. Tell me about, like, growing up and what your first experience, like, was with energy.
Oh my gosh. I think one of my first experiences was when my mom's mom, my grandmother on my mom's side, passed away. Within that week, I started, like, you know, I remember it vividly. I was staring in through a screen door and I started seeing a silhouette, and I ran as fast as I could.
How old were you?
Gotta be like 8 or 9. And I think at times when there's death in the family and, you know, something that breaks your heart open, your gifts are in your heart. So when your heart is open, whether that's extreme positive or extreme pain, you know, gifts come through. And I think that's one of the times where my third eye opened. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? And I was so scared, I just ran away, and I'm like, I'm just pale white. I told my mom, I was like, I saw something scary down there. I don't want to go there anymore, right? So to me, that was one of the first things that I had. But other than that, it's always been, I hear things, like, and I feel things. It's like, I have friends back then, because in the Philippines, like, you know, mysticism and all these supernatural, they were part of the culture.
Right.
Right. You know, it was everywhere. It was funny because I grew up in a place where it was a Catholic household, but the Filipino culture was filled with all this stuff.
Mysticism.
Yeah, to where it's kind of like
Latinos are similar.
Yeah, to where you're living a double life of like, my mom's like, well, I don't believe in psychics, but let's, this card reading over here. They're like, that's like I don't know. It's like,
I felt the same where it's like my specific parents, I'm Dominican, are so Catholic. They named me after Jesus of Nazareth.
Right.
But then I had an aunt who read tarot. But my parents were like, don't, that's the devil, because they were so angry. But both existed within our family.
They'd be like, don't, that's terrible. But what did they say?
Yeah.
Right? Like it was a thing. My mom would like have these superstitious beliefs of things that we had to do. I'm like, Mom, why are you doing this? I remember when we bought homes, they would call in what's called albulario, would come in there and bless the land, like, and do all these rituals. I'm like, that's not Catholic. But they're like, yeah, but it's, just for good luck.
Yeah.
Right? So it was like
indigenous.
Exactly. So to me, I grew up as that was a background. So I never thought it was too weird. It was just always there. And I always heard stories of like my grandfather and my father's side. He could channel to where when there was bickering within the siblings and rivalry. And in the Philippines, they fought a lot about inheritance and money and all this stuff. To where I was like, I never really could understand it. And he would channel their dead father that passed and settle the score between all the siblings.
Like inheritance-wise.
Yeah. And his voice would change. Everything would change. And not only would he channel, like, hey, guys, stop fighting or whatever.
Whoa.
He would say, and this relative of yours, they're going through something, addiction. This relative of yours have their health checked. They would give all this advice. And he would go back to normal. And next thing you know, everything came true.
And so from a really young age, you were exposed to something that a lot of people never see in a lifetime.
No, because
a lot of people would be like, that's crazy. That's not real.
Yeah, like my mom had a dream. There's a little bit more on to me. It's like how I knew it was real. She had a dream, for example, that one of my cousins, she was engaged to this guy and had a dream that that guy passed away. 4 days later, it happened.
4 days later?
Yes. So she had premonition. So to me,
your mom was engaged to him?
No. So my mom had a dream about her niece, right? Her niece's fiance dying, and it happened within 4 days.
Wow.
In my life, I grew up with my mom coming to me with dreams, regardless of how small it is, of, oh, this person's this, and it all came true.
And so your mom trusted her gifts, and so did your grandfather.
So my mom kind of expressed it, but every single time we would say it's psychic, she'd be, no, it's not.
She didn't like that word.
Didn't like the term.
Right.
But she practiced it.
But she trusted it too.
Yeah.
How do you feel like that influenced you into becoming who you are today? And when was the first time you remember really realizing that you could heal people with energy?
Oof. It's funny because I had this big, this recent big breakthrough with a family that happened because growing up, I was the rebellious kid. Super troublemaker. Like my mom would be called to the principal's office crying almost every other week.
Yeah. Is this why you were a rock and roll star?
Yeah, I was super rebellious. I did not like rules. Like, cause in our family, it was like the way my dad parented us was nothing was ever good enough. If you had an A, it should have been an A+. If you had an A+, you should have been an A+, and you should have been this tall.
Totally.
Like, it was all these hoops. So to me, I'm like, screw that perfection. I get more praise when I'm doing something bad.
Interesting.
So I got love and connection when, in our family, it was when you were super excelling or when you were having issues. So I think as a kid, I unconsciously
got attention through being misbehaving.
So my entire recollection of my childhood was I was just naughty. That's all I can think of. So it was funny because my mom went to this reunion with my relatives like recently and sat down with one of her cousins, and the cousin was like my grandfather, who on my dad's side, who was now that I'm talking about it, like, I come to realize was also a healer. But I didn't know. I'm just coming to realize. I didn't know this till recently. Told him that relative of ours, when I was 7 or 8, that I was a healer. And I'm like, I'm just hearing about this now. And it baffled me because my mom was like, yeah. I was like, what do you mean? Told him in a dream? It's like, no, when you were 7 or 8, like, your grandfather told, this relative of ours that he's got the gift of healing.
Wow.
And I was like thinking to myself, and I was baffled because I was like, that's interesting because 7 or 8, I didn't have any selfless bone in my body.
But when you were 8, you saw the silhouette of your grandmother.
Yeah, I didn't know. But to me, all my recollection was just doing all these
bad
crazy things. I never knew that I was like a healer. And to me, that's like representing of a lot of our beliefs, thinking that since we're so flawed and we've gone through a lot of pain, that we can't possibly have a gift.
Right.
Because humanity thinks that way. And to me, I was like,
I think that way.
Yeah, to where I'm like, how could you be both? How could you be both?
You can't be both.
You can, but in my mind, I was like, shoot, how could I miss it? And how did he see it? Right? And he was the same grandfather that could channel.
That's what I was going to ask. It's
He was
probably
the same
that
one.
great. Yeah.
So for me, it's kind of like everything's coming together of like, even though I had no recollection of my gift as
People
a healer
saw
growing
it.
up, people saw it. Even though when I thought it was the complete opposite, it was there because I don't think we can really shut it off. It's there.
It's just there.
It's always
and maybe
always
it's just
there.
clouded by our energetic blocks.
Yeah.
Do you feel like we also have energetic blocks from past lives? Do you believe in past lives?
I do believe that we have some that cross over, but I feel like more of the energy blocks that cross over from the past lives, they get easily dealt with because if you've ever believed in like people that you meet that you have a soul connection to, right? You meet them and you feel like, oh wow, I know you.
Yeah.
And they come in here because they're meant to teach you a lesson, you to teach them a lesson, or you to fulfill a soul contract, or them to do otherwise. And then when that finishes, I feel like that wraps up things from past lives,
Right.
right? Because there's some lessons that were probably like, past life I wasn't able to speak my truth, and I want to do it in this lifetime.
So that's
it
why
follows you, and you're like, and that's why at times you're like, oh, I just want to do this. You don't know why. You don't know why you have the drive or the calling. It's because
you're wrapping something up.
wrapping something up. So when you have a strong thing that you're working through, that it feels like, why does it keep showing up in my life over and over again intensely? To me, there's a chance that it could be past life
There's
stuff.
something wrapping up. How does your family feel about your gifts now?
Now,
Yeah.
oh, it's bragging rights for them.
But they fully accept it, and
Yeah.
that's so lucky because I feel like we come, when you come from an ethnic background, I think typically, historically, stereotypically, those type of people can be more wary. I don't know if it's because in my family, Latinos are just more religious.
It used to be. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, I think had I not had the impact that I have right now, it would be different.
Wow.
Where my mom's like, I have my mom's friends from high school messaging her, saying that they're signed up for my program.
That's incredible.
People like, people from her work, it's like, and I think when she started seeing the impact and she started seeing that, because her biggest fear for me and my parents were, they didn't want me to, not be successful in life, not be happy.
Yeah.
So to me, their path was like, you gotta be a doctor, you gotta be a lawyer.
Totally.
And,
What all our parents tell
and I
us.
remember when I went into the business path, it didn't matter. They're like, you should still be a doctor, you should still be a nurse. It didn't matter. It was the title was so important for them, the image was. To where it didn't matter when I was successful, they're like, you should do it as a backup, just to be safe.
Yeah.
Right? And I think it gone to a point to where they've seen the benefit of me standing in my truth. They seem to change my life. They seem to change the lives of my sisters and a lot of people around me. And they're finally seeing like, wow, you're exactly where you need to be. So now they're very proud.
But it must have been brave to push through that until you got where you are. And it's so...
The first 15 years, they were not accepting.
And people need to hear that, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes people are scared to come in and be their authentic selves, But it's incredible that you're a Filipino and you're in this space and you're so commercially successful. Typically, I feel like you don't see that often. You don't see brown and black people in this space be successful in it. So that's always meant a lot to me. But I still want to hear what your first
Healing was?
Yeah, with energy.
I mean, I think actually, it was funny. I didn't heal myself, but my first healing was somebody healed me. And I remember I was so before I was an energy healer, I started off as an entrepreneur. It's my first love, is like, building businesses, growing them, selling them. And back in my earlier stages, I was stuck at a certain level of income. And I was the person to where my first default that I did was the mind. So I'm like, what can I learn? What limiting beliefs do I have to release? No, what inner child work do I have to do? Like every buzzword you can possibly think of.
That's where I am.
Let me do all.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like, I'm working more, doing more, I feel like everything I can at it, spaghetti in the wall for something to stick, nothing sticking. And I felt like with all the effort that I was putting through, nothing was happening. It's like very little, if any. And I thought to myself, shoot, I don't know what to do, but I'm open. So this was I think I was still living in Orange County this time. So I remember this is a funny story. One of my friends, she's an intuitive. I met up with her, and I didn't know what the energy centers were or what the chakras. I didn't know anything. So I paid her for her time, and we're in this cafe in Topanga Canyon. And for 2 hours, we were there, and she was drawing everything for me. Like, here's the energy system, here are the chakras.
Wow.
I was like, what the hell is this? But I've never heard of it.
Wow.
Like, to
How
me,
old were you?
This has got to be like 19, right? 19, 20, somewhere in there.
Right.
Very young. And I thought to myself, what is this? Because this was like, The Secret hasn't come out yet, I think.
Wow. So
No secret.
Nobody was talking about law of attraction.
No secret, no shamanism, nothing. It was like back then, meditation or all the things that are famous now were mainstream.
They weren't mainstream.
No, they weren't. So I was there. I was like, this is interesting. Okay. And she goes like, I got a healer. I got a friend of mine. He's a healer from Australia. He's going to be here in a few weeks. You should meet him. He can work with whatever is blocking you. And I'm like, okay. So I remember I signed up for that, and I drove from Orange County to Topanga, and oh my gosh, the traffic there, especially if it's rush hour. It's like 2.5 hours. Oh my gosh. And I was so hungry. I go into this Topanga Canyon. There was this like octagon shaped guest house. I was like, where am I? So I walk in there, and the moment I walk in there, I was like, what is that horrid smell? Because I've never smelled sage before. It smelled so like, that's foul. I was like, what's this? And so I smelled that smell.
That's foul.
That's just
Weird.
that's weird.
Wow.
And then there was a lot of in the background chanting, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, gosh, it's gonna be like stepping into a cult, because it felt like I've never heard ohms and chanting before, and there was something that was played in the background that was like ohms and chanting, and I walked in there, and this guy comes up, all white, mala beads, and I'm like, oh gosh, all right, if I never walk out of here alive, like this is it. Weird guy wearing all, because I've never seen a shaman or a healer. I'm like,
Wow.
all new to me. I walk in there, could barely understand him, like a really, really thick Australian accent. He told me to sit down, and he's like, okay, you got blocks, I'll work on them. I'm like, okay. And I was sitting down, and I was so impatient because I was like, I couldn't see anything, I couldn't feel anything. It was like, it's like, what's going on? Am I wasting my time? Am I just making it up? And then I was like, oh wow, I think I can hear something. Because I heard like whooshing. I was like, ooh, maybe something's turning on, because I'm hearing the sounds of like wind, and I'm in this closed environment where there is no wind. And I kind of tried to peek, and he was like with a crystal going shh. I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is he's a freaking ocean sound wave maker. Oh my gosh.
That's so
I was like, I closed my eyes, I'm like, okay, I'll ever be patient. And throughout that time, I had all these negative limiting beliefs, all this self-talk. I was talking shit. I'm like, this guy is probably just scamming me for my money. He doesn't probably know what he's doing. Like, what is this evil thing? All these religious thoughts, everything you can think of was coming. And then all of a sudden, I was like, I felt something in my stomach. And I'm like, oh gosh, maybe this is the block being removed. And I felt it. I was like, oh, something's coming up. And then all it really was my stomach had this growling sound, because I was going from hungry to hangry.
Uh-oh.
I was like, and when you're hangry, you just can't think.
No.
So luckily he wrapped it up, And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be forever. Wrapped it up. And he was like, you had abundance blocks from your dad passed on to you. It was in your heart. I removed it. So you should see a lot of abundance coming in, a windfall.
Wow.
In the next, 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh my God.
And in my mind, I'm like, wow, I got taken twice. Not only is this guy like, a sound maker, I also got a walking Australian fortune cookie telling me exactly what my fortune is. And I'm like, oh gosh, I was like, so I kind of like politely, I was like, thank you, paid him, wrote it off for weeks. I was like, what a waste of time. Ate my food on the way down to Panga. There was a cafe there. I ate them. This is great. Drove back home, didn't think anything of it. And then 5 weeks later, there was this opportunity that came out of nowhere. I didn't plan for it. I didn't, want it. I couldn't even set an intention because I didn't even know that was possible. And I made more in one day than in an entire year.
That's insane.
And I got hooked. I was like, you're telling me.
You're like, this guy removed.
For 1 hour, I sat down there. I didn't see anything. I didn't feel anything. I was skeptical. Super skeptic. I was talking shit about this healer in my mind.
And it still worked.
Which
is, I love that story. Thanks for sharing it. I actually wanted to ask you, how much does someone believing in what you're doing play into it?
Nothing.
So I could be sitting there the whole time and be like, this isn't going to work on me. And it can actually still be working on me.
Yep. Because the thing is, they have to be open and they have to show up.
You have to be open and show up.
That's it. But you don't have to believe in it. Because the thing is, when we're doing energy work, you got to remember, it's happening independent of the mind. It's your energy field. It's all your energy, which is not your mind.
It's not your mind.
So
we often think we are our mind.
Yeah, we think we are our mind, but we're beyond that. So to me, it happens independent of the mind. The mind kind of like, to me, the mind is the last to align.
Wow.
Like energy happens first, and then your mind's got to wrap its mind around what happened, and it's always it's always delayed. It's never like first or on time.
It's always delayed. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So you make more in one day than you have the entire year, and the rest...
Yeah, it's not the rest is history, because in 2 months I lost it all.
Oh.
Because here's the thing. Energy got me there, but guess what? What's the last line? The mind.
The mind.
So my mind was still programmed for this amount of money. It wasn't programmed for this amount of money that quick. So my mind was like, it's kind of like you're used to sleeping in 62 degrees, right?
Yeah,
so anything
memory, I have to sleep 62 degrees.
Right. So if it's 70 for you, there's got to be something that's already too hot where you're like, oh my gosh, it's too hot. I got to lower it down.
Yeah.
And when it gets too hot, you have to lower it to your comfort zone. Same thing with money. Same thing with relationships. If we're used to this kind of love or this kind of availability or this kind of abundance, anything beyond that too quickly, even though it's good, we revert back to our comfort zone.
Because your vessel isn't expanded.
Exactly.
Whoa.
So my mind and my rules around money and how fast it should show up, to me, I thought money is hard. Got to work hard. It takes a long time, right? And you really, blood, sweat, and tears. So when all of that happened without my rules, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. It didn't follow my rules. So my mind got rid of it. So I'm like, paying for my sister's tuition, I'm paying for my mom's bills, bought a car, went on a vacation. I was like, I spent it as fast as I could because I was uncomfortable with too much too fast.
Wow.
So what I learned from it is this. Energy can get me there fast. But my mind, if I don't work on it, will get rid of it. So my approach afterwards was like, it's fine. Energy will get me there fast.
Yeah.
So I can deal with my mind with style. Right? So I have the resources, I can deal with it. It's kind of like if you look at people that win the lottery, right? They did a study, and I forget where I read it, but it says...
Yeah, because most people's lives get ruined after they...
Yeah, and they're in most of them, 10 years later, are in a worse financial space.
Wow.
What I would have done if I won the lottery, energetically, and I won it, spend all the money on energy work, rewiring my mind, expanding abundance, so I actually can keep it.
Right.
So I would work on my mental framework and identity for money so that I'm not throwing it away. I would upgrade it.
So how can we do that quickly? How can we shift those limiting beliefs quickly if we do get something that we love immediately or that we've always wanted to manifest?
Other than energy work, the other one I like is environment. I'm a big believer in environment, to where because I remember a time where I was in a community college, and I went through a few semesters of Spanish, and then I went to Guatemala for 2 weeks. I learned more Spanish in Guatemala in 2 weeks than in like those few semesters.
Right.
It was crazy, but if you think about it, why? In Guatemala, if I wanted to eat, if I wanted to go somewhere, if I wanted to survive, everyone spoke the language, and I had to learn it.
Right.
So to me, one of the fastest ways really is your environment. So it's kind of like that's been my philosophy to where, okay, I want to work with people, I want to change the world, then my environment becomes, the who's of people that have changed the world, and I feel so uncomfortable being around them, but then energetically I'm around them, therefore they're doing something to me energetically. So I've been a big fan of your environment, and your environment can be people, or what you read, what you listen to, what you lend your energy to, what you watch on social media.
Yeah. I love that you said that, because I feel like I had to it's really hard to sort of shed stuff you're not vibrating with anymore and make sure you're constantly surrounded by people that inspire you. But you are someone you're constantly around people that inspire everybody.
Yeah.
And I feel like the first fact I knew about you was Gwyneth Paltrow's energy healer. And I always wanted to know if you can talk about it, how you met Gwyneth.
Yeah.
Because obviously your life changed after that. You built the vessel. You worked through the limiting beliefs. You have this amazing business. You were healing people individually. Then you're training people. Now you're healing again. Yeah. But you've worked with like massive billionaires, world leaders, celebrities. Did it start with Gwyneth?
No, honestly, the way it started, it's one thing led to another. It's
as it always does.
Yeah. If I were, I think I can trace it, so you can see. You can see the pattern of it.
I would love to hear this story.
Okay. So are you familiar with the podcast, Goalcast? Mm-mm. They're this like motivational company to put all these videos. Anyways, the Goalcast folks, actually introduced me to Jay Shetty's company, like 2017. And then Jay Shetty and his team introduced me to
Jay Shetty's production company?
Yeah, I mean,
I thought he just launched one. Was it?
No, he had one back in the day that's like, did one for authors and speakers.
Oh, cool.
Right. So from there, I was introduced.
And you had your book out already by then?
No, back then, honestly, I was like still a closet healer. But back then, I was just like in my old business, but I was networking. I was just still building relationships. Right?
What was your old business?
I was teaching people how to turn their passion and their expertise into a business online. So they would do workshops, they would sell products, they would do events, kind of like what we're doing now. But I was teaching people how to do that. So
sort of the Martha Stewart model, how you can like fringe like everything that you love into different like businesses.
And they would do it all online. And I would work with people that were starting out, people that were extremely established, and then the Jay Shetty thing. I got introduced to Medical Medium. To Anthony William. So he's one of my best friends now. He's the one that wrote about the celery juice. Everybody.
I remember everyone. He was so huge. He still is.
He is. I mean, he
was one of the first.
Oh my
I feel like woo accounts that I followed.
One of the first. He's even partners with Cafe Gratitude now. They're in partnership, and
Sick.
Yeah. So he's like doing his thing. We're like one of my best friends now, and I worked with him. We were like buddies, and he introduced me to the Vanderbeeks. So
the real Vanderbeeks,
James and Kimberly Vanderbeek. So, and they were like, and back then we were living.
Oh, sorry, James Vanderbeek, the actor.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
And his wife.
Got it.
So
I was thinking of the twins in The Social Network.
I
forget their names. It's something similar. It's not that though.
So back then we were living in this beautiful oceanfront house in Laguna Beach. So the Vanderbeeks, they visited us a lot. They were, he was actually in Dancing with the Stars back then. So they were visiting a lot, and they met a lot of friends. So it was funny because Mandy is so introverted. She doesn't like any, like to her it's like, we're in this house, amazing. And then every day she would be waking up and they're like, hey babe, so-and-so is coming, right? And it's like, house was like flooded with celebrities in and out.
So you met James through the Medical Medium.
Yeah. And then that kind of opened up a lot of things because when James...
Were celebrities coming to you because they wanted to know how to make businesses?
Oh no,
that have
healing.
for
healing.
heal. Oh, so you were closet healing, helping them.
Exactly.
Got
Closet
it.
healing.
And how did James know that you were a healer? You told him?
So no, so Anthony William told Kimberly, James' wife, that I'm a healer.
Got it.
So Kimberly comes in there with a group of her, they call the Goddess Circle, all her friends. They were there. Jenna Dewan was there. I didn't know who she was. Like all these different. They came in. What's her name again? She's from Twilight. I forget her name.
Kristen Stewart?
The other guy. She's from Twilight, but she married the guy who's also in Vampire Diaries. I forget her name now.
Nina Garst. No.
Nina is also her friend, but no,
Yeah.
it was but well, yeah, one of them. I think it's Ian Somerhalder's wife. I forget.
Okay, great.
So she comes in there, and there are all these people that I don't know who they were.
Right.
And Kimberly was like, "This is so and so and so and so and so," and Mandy comes down. And she's like, "There's a lot of people in here. What's going on?"
Yeah.
So, and then they had amazing results, and I think from there it kind of blew up to where,
Of you removing energy blocks.
yeah, they were like some of them were feeling things that they've never felt in there. And next thing you know, like it kind of grew, and the next thing you know, we have Gerard Butler comes, like we work on him, and then Demi Moore comes, and she was and I think she was the path to Gwyneth, because when Demi came in there, like it was she was there, and then she brought all her family members, like and then her entire circle was there, and then she's like, you gotta meet my friend Donna Karen. So I worked with Donna for a while, and then from Donna came Tony Robbins.
Wow.
And then Tony Robbins and his wife, and then they introduced me to Julianne Hough, right? And then Julianne did Gwyneth.
Wow.
So it was like, but the thing
So
is,
it was all word of mouth.
yeah, it was all like, it was
People
like,
having really healing
Yeah.
people and
Yeah.
them feeling the result of that.
yeah, it was literally like Julianne was here with Nina Dobrev for like 5 days, and we were like healing all stuff, and then that week when she came back, she like, make the introduction to Gwyneth.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, I never really know where things lead. It's just like,
Yeah.
I do a healing. Next thing you know, it's like, so-and-so hears about it. So-and-so hears about it. And it's like, it goes word of mouth viral in a way. But
Yeah.
but that was back when I was still a closet healer. Because I did that for a few years before I was like, okay, I'm going to do this.
I'm going to let go of me helping people make businesses. I'm going to fully step into my gifts.
I'm going to fully burn the bridge. Burn the ships.
So scary.
I know, it was.
The old world. That's what I'm dealing with right now. Yeah.
And to me, it was, I knew what I had to do, but for several years I avoided it. And the only thing that made me, you have to have a why, a big enough why. To me, my big why, Mandy was pregnant with her first son together, Zion. And I was still like closet healer, right? And I remember she was like, you have all these people that come to us, and they're in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And some of their biggest traumas is childhood trauma. Their mom, their dad, something in the household environment that affected them that they still carry with them. Mm-hmm. Biggest trauma. Mm-hmm. So to me, it kind of dawned on me. I was like, shoot, I work with all these people to heal their childhood trauma. I have this son coming into the world. Blank slate. And Mandy was like, how would his life be if he knew that his father was hiding his biggest gift?
Whoa.
And saw his father living a double life, right? Whoa. And hiding, how would it affect him? And I was like, I gotta shine my light. So that was to me, the fact that because I wouldn't have done it for myself, but the fact that I would have passed it on to my son. And back then I was dealing with a lot of father wounds I had to heal, knowing that I could be the source of his pain, and that would affect his life. That was my fuel to be like, it doesn't matter if it's scary. It doesn't matter if I don't feel like I'm ready. I'm going to burn. And the business was doing well, millions. So like, this golden parachute, I'm just going to leave that behind. I'm going to be a broke healer, right? Or whatever.
Oh my God.
Because healers aren't successful.
No.
I'm just going to do this, and that's my passion work. And let the chips fall where they may. Sure, hopefully God has a higher plan for me, but I'm surrendering and I'm doing this. And I burned the bridge, burned all of it, and I'm like, I'm just doing this with no path forward. Just the feeling and the thought that I have to do this.
How did you ride the wave of uncertainty when you made that jump? Because you were telling me about that jump. recently.
Yep.
And I feel like I'm in the middle of that jump right now. And it feels like it's really scary to let go of that parachute. So what advice do you have to people who are so scared to burn what they know? That's their livelihood. And hopefully, potentially, almost praying certainly will make money doing what they actually want to do.
Well, first of all, I think my path isn't the only path. Some people that I help, if they're not wired like me, I tell them to do what you're doing, do the side thing, and when the side thing makes more than what you're doing, you can make the jump.
Yeah.
But I'm not wired that way. Because for me, I'm like, if I focus all my manifestation and energy into this one thing,
it'll happen.
It'll happen fast. If it's fractaled off, it's going to be super slow.
Yeah.
And for me, one of my biggest pet peeves is slow.
That's what my Kabbalah teacher, David Guillaume, talks about. Fragmentation is the biggest momentum energy kill. And it's the more time you put between you and your manifestation, he says, the more chaos can ensue. So I feel like you in a way where I'm like, oh my God, I got to go all in on this one thing I love, but it's scary.
So I had to go all in. And when I went all in, the results show quickly. Because when it's the right thing for you, like it's led by a higher power or universe or God, it's like, it's what's next for you, and you go all in on that, to me, like, things speed up. Like, miracles happen. And getting to the all in part was a little hard. Like, I had to have a big enough why. Like, I've known I needed to do it for probably several years.
Yeah.
But knowing I need to do it and doing it are two different things.
I feel like that's where I'm at right now, where it feels like I've known for years, but I also feel like you need to get your why right and in check, because I'm like, because a part of me feels like maybe I just want it for myself, but I know it's bigger than me and it's all divine, and it can happen without me, and it can choose another person to manifest through.
Yeah.
But it's also like, well, why do I want to do this for the world? You know?
Well, here's the thing.
What do I want to bring to the world?
I think it depends. I met people that like me, for example, in the beginning, I wouldn't have done it for anybody else. I wouldn't have done it for me. But if it was for family, I would do it. But I could be like, okay, well, with my first son, Brayden, I stayed in that marriage for a while, and if it was just me, I would be like, it's fine. I can deal with pain. But when I saw it affecting him mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I'm like, not one more day. Because to me, that's my why. So when my why was triggered, I was fast to move.
Interesting.
And so for some people, their why is somebody else. And I met other people to where they've been doing everything for everybody else. Their entire life has been everybody else, somebody else, somebody else,
another
somebody else.
Company.
And their why is, it's them. It's me, because it's my time. It's my turn. And that's okay. I think there's no shame in your why being a higher calling, your why being, another person, your why being you. It just has to be authentic and it has to be real. It can't be like, well, my why is me, but I feel like the right thing to say is my why is for the world. So it has to be aligned. It has to be a real why. So it's got to be, when you look at your life, what really moves you? What is it to where it's like, oh shit, if that's on the line, I'm definitely moving. I'm definitely doing it. And you just have to dig deep to find that why.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love it.
Right.
When you, I don't know if you're allowed to share this, but I've always wanted to ask you. So these celebrities and people that you work with, you're sometimes working with them in like really challenging times where they're dealing with things in the public eye. And I've always thought it was so weird that Hollywood, this world that I work in all the time, feels so unconscious. And yet there's so many people who are, I kind of want to call them closet conscious, right? Not all of them, a lot of people don't know that some of these people worked with a healer, in a living room. What are you doing specifically in when there's so much energy towards a person, if Gwyneth's going through a ski trial or someone's going through, how do you work with energy that's so potent that all eyes are on this? Is that harder to work with?
No, it's funny enough, you mentioned it. I actually worked with Gwyneth during your ski trial. There's pictures of her online. She's actually holding She liked the cover off of my book, so it's just a purple book. But on the way to the trial, she was holding my book and she was reading it. And to me, I'm used to it in a way because by that time I'm doing healings on the world. I'm doing healings on a lot of people to where I'm used to that kind of pressure. To me, it's almost like the more pressure, I perform better.
Interesting.
So for me, like it was interesting with hers. It was like it was more of pulling her to a high vibration while she was on trial. It was more of like, hey, I know trial's going on, right? But what are you excited about beyond the trial? What do you want to create? What's something that you're wanting to birth into the world? What's something that you can focus on? Because if you focus just on the trial, you're in a low vibration, and in a low vibration, things don't go in your favor. If you're in a high vibration and you're focusing on what you want to create, who you want to help, and what beauty you want to bring into the world, like what are you excited about? You're in a high vibration, and things actually happen faster for you in that space. So it's not that you're in the space; it's what vibration are you as you're going through this determines a lot of the outcome.
Wow.
So for me, it's like it's a matter of the tabloids are big, be bigger. Like have your vibration be bigger than everything else. And for her, that's what really clicked. It's like, yeah, she's sitting there day after day in this trial. The world's watching, but during that time, she's reading, she's journaling. Her mind is in also the positive things. It was also going higher, not just the humanistic things. As you're getting attacked, you have to go higher.
Wow, that's beautiful advice.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, a lot of times people I would say, here's the thing. There's a difference between, I feel people who are, so in Hollywood, but also in life that I've seen, there are people that come to me because they're going through something and they just need help for the moment. Whether it's something that's really, really big, going on in their lives, or they're in the face of the tabloids, or their business is losing billions online per day, right, or whatever, and they're a big, social media founder. To me, it's either it's driven by something really, really intense, and they come to me because they know that I'm the person for those situations. Or I've also met people that are on that path of continuous growth, and they're always growing, and they're always optimizing their themselves. They just always want to be better. Jessica Alba is one of them. She's always growing, always learning, always expanding.
So sick.
She's always just what you if you see what she does behind the scenes, she's she lives it. She's spiritual, she's conscious, she tries to heal, she parents amazingly, to where to me, when I look at people like that, there's either people that are aligned and they live it and they believe it, and they're students and they really want to expand, and there are folks that are shoot, I'm going through the toughest time of my life and I just need help. And to me, they're both needed. Right. But people just find me for different reasons. Not everyone's I'm super conscious and I want to be, in this path, and I believe spirituality. It's just that they're in pain, they want to be out of it.
Yeah. What do you feel like is next for you? Do you feel like you're ever evolving and expanding, or you're really relishing in the present moment?
It's so interesting because whenever I think, if you ask me where I would be 10 years ago, I wouldn't imagine where I was 5 years ago.
Right.
And if you ask me where I am now, I couldn't have told you that 2 years ago. Because I feel when we're thinking about goals, we're thinking about goals from our current level of consciousness and vibration and mindset. To where you might have, I'm asking you, Naz, what's your goal right now? You might be I want this, this, and that. And in 90 days, you grow exponentially. You might have a different answer. Right. And the answer you have then might be completely different from what you have now. So for me, all I have visibility on is everything from my current mindset. And that is, to me, my goal has always been, can I reach 1 billion people with my work? Can I have practitioners from 1 million practitioners that I've certified in 100 different countries? And it is, documentaries and having more centers from all over the world that are practitioners run. It is, right now we're working a lot on research and scientific data, where we have, scientists, researchers, hooking up our folks, before healing and after, and like really like showing the results mentally, emotionally, physically. So we have a lot of those and to me, my goal is I want energy healing, energetic health to be a normalized conversation.
Yeah.
People are like mental health, emotional health, physical health, energetic health, to where it's not weird saying that in school systems and hospital. Because right now, me and Mandy's work, for example, we have practitioners that are like, her work is in first responders, firefighters in Colorado. So when they're choosing like, what modality they're going through, her work comes up.
Wow.
For mine, it's like we have practitioners in school districts in, the Bay Area, where they do healings on principals, like, superintendent, teachers.
Wow.
We've got like people that are like chief nursing officers for big facilities, and they're doing energy work on like, doctors, nurses, patients. So it's kind of getting into the mainstream.
Wow.
And for me, it's just making that more normalized, so people don't have to feel weird about it.
Well, you're doing it, and I'm so grateful to be able to sit next to you and even be on the sidelines of like your journey and the gifts that you've put into the world, like not only to me and people individually that work for you, but really the world. I'm so proud of you.
Well, thank you.
I love you so much.